Hey guys, the second article you're going to be reading this week is called The Truth About War Finally. And again, this is a peer-reviewed article in a journal magazine. And I want you to note right here, you'll oftentimes see underneath these peer-reviewed articles, you'll have to cite this article and it'll list the citation information. This is not necessarily the method of citation you're going to be using. This is an older version of APA right here, but you can use it in that it has all the information you need to cite it in MLA format for your paper. So just keep that in mind that you don't want to just simply copy and paste this cite article information here into your works cited because it's not the format that you need. So this one again starts out with our abstract, although it's not listing it as the abstract, but that first little paragraph in there always is, along with our keywords. Again, as before, don't just skip over the abstract. It's going to give you an easier overview of what the entire article is going to be about in about 150 words. So this one here is going to start out on the background of the movie that was spawned from this book, All Quiet on the Western Front, and the fact that it ended up being banned by Joseph Goebbels in Germany, and that was Hitler's head of propaganda. And they banned the film as being anti-German, anti-soldier, anti-war, and didn't allow it to be shown. They actually burned the book in Germany as well. And so it starts out with the history of the book and the movie and the banning. What was the mentality? Why did they actually go ahead and do this? Why did they feel it necessary to do this? And so then it's going to give us a little bit of background on literature about World War I or German wars, their perspective that have happened since 1914. And they had always been written in a very factual sense or a very in the sense of a novel. It wasn't necessarily the combining of the two. And that's where All Quiet on the Western Front differed. We had the conversation going into this that while this is a fictional story, it has elements of truth in it that Erich Remarque, who was on the front line of the Western Front of the German military in World War I, a lot of these things were things that happened to him, and it's hard to differentiate where the truth of the war for him was and where he used literary embellishments to make a point. And you guys have brought that up in some of your questions. Did this really happen to him? Is this how it occurred? And the answer is not really sure, to be perfectly honest. So this was almost a new type of literature, and it changed the way people thought about war because it made it very personal. They could feel like they were those soldiers on the front lines and what they were experiencing and they were going through. And then it's going to talk a little bit about the publishing, what went on, and some of this was stuff we talked about, the fact that it first was published in a journal in a couple of different volumes before it was actually published as a novel. And it went through the editorial process. The original novel itself had a lot of anti-war sentiment, and we can still pick that up as some of you guys are doing that as your topic for your paper, that anti-war sentiment. But the published version wasn't nearly as anti-war as some of these prior versions were. And so what we have is a little bit different than what Remarque had originally intended before the editor got a hold of it. So they go on then and they talk about how people felt about this, the argument whether or not this was real or whether or not this was completely imaginary. And it sort of ended up somewhere in between. And this idea of finding the truth, what is true about war? What is true about what happened to Erich Remarque and, in turn, his character Paul throughout the novel, the things that he experienced. And then finally, the conclusion, what does this author believe is the truth, the purpose? Was the German army banning this book because it really was true? This is what it was really like in World War I. And, they didn't want that idea that the German soldier was beat by their own government. And so, you've got a lot of competing ideas here. But this one, again, you're going to be utilizing in your literature analysis. So you're looking for elements that this author has already come up with and portrayed to strengthen your article, or I'm sorry, your own analysis of the paper. So if you have any questions while you're reading it or something else that you don't understand or need me to clarify, please don't hesitate to ask me.